I'm Tracy with MeatRx. I'm here with Phil Escott today, and we're going to share, he's going to share his success story. And so he's a drummer, a writer, and so many other things. He will tell you all about himself, I'm sure. But hi, Phil.
Hi, Tracy.
Thank you so much for coming to our program. And I would like to start out by asking you, what was life like before Carnivore? What conditions, health conditions did you have, and what kind of diet did you eat before?
Oh, it was way better. I could eat pizza, I could drink Coke. I felt so much better. Meat's ruined my life. No, I'm messing. No, it was, well, you know, I mean, I grew up on a sort of standard meat and 2 vegetable diet, and I was pretty healthy. But then about age 18, I decided I was going to start messing about with macrobiotic diets. You know, it was 1980. I was 18 years old. I was traveling around in a hippie van and sort of living on really cheap brown rice and lentils. And I started to get digestive issues and joints hurt. And I thought, this is weird. I've never had that before. I must be just getting old, you know. So anyway, this went on, and I ended up getting very influenced by the sort of Indian spirituality and TM and meditation kind of movement. And of course they spend their lives eating rice and dal and veg and that sort of thing. And so I got sucked into that. And yes, I mean, because I was 18 or so, and because ailments built up so slowly, it's sort of like, you know, a frog being boiled slowly, isn't it? And you don't really quite realize how many things are going wrong. Then I got really interested in diet and exercise and health, lifestyle, all kinds of things, and got into studying about Chinese medicine and Ayurveda and all of those things. And by 96, well, late 90s, mid 90s to late 90s, I owned a gym, and I got pretty big, pretty muscly. Used to write for bodybuilding mags, but I always had aches and pains, and I always had digestive issues, and I could never get really lean, no matter how much cardio exercise I did. But at that time, I sort of added a load of chicken and fish and eggs to my otherwise vegetarian diet, which, you know, it bungs a bit of protein in, but it doesn't do much for healing up the gut, and it doesn't really do much for getting more nutrients in, because you're eating all those anti-nutrients. But I didn't know that at the time. So I went along and wrote a book about how amazing vegetarian diets were and Ayurvedic medicine, all that. And this went on and until the early 2000s, and I'd given up the gym. I'd gone traveling, came back again, and started to get pretty fat, and wasn't training much, and started to eat a pretty junky vegetarian diet, mostly vegetarian diet, lacto-ovo type vegetarian diet, with bouts of veganism when I felt like I should be a bit pious and go onto a very healthy diet, and oddly bouts of Atkins when I thought I was getting too fat, because I thought, that very dangerous diet, at least it drops some weight, and I can do that for a couple of weeks and then get back onto my healthy, you know, rice and dal. Now, I was so unbelievably stupid that I would, in those 2 weeks, I'd drop weight, joints would get better, everything would feel fantastic. I'd feel like I'd reversed about 10 years in age. And yet I had to get back onto my healthy diet again. And so I get back onto my healthy diet with endless farting and bloating and reflux and God knows what. And gradually the joints started to hurt a bit more, you know, but then I had all sorts of diagnoses. I had rosacea, I had fatty liver cysts, I had arterial calcifications, I had IBS, I had all kinds of things. And I had no idea how to fix them. And then in 2009, I thought, right, I'll go right properly Ayurvedic on this Ayurvedic diet. And I'll start a website to chart my journey back to health. It didn't go according to plan, because by the end of 2010, not only did I still have all the ailments and fat that I had before, but I also suddenly, well, it seemed like suddenly, but obviously it was building up for years, got really full on psoriatic arthritis. I remember the right ankle blew up, then the left one, like really bad sprains with glass in the joints, it felt like, and then my left knee, and then fingers, and then the wrist kicked in again, which had been there pretty much in the early 90s, probably a little warning of what was to come. And my back, my neck, everything basically. and I couldn't really function. I couldn't pick up a drumstick for a long time. Certainly couldn't play any kick drum pedals, you know, so I couldn't play drums. And so I decided, well, you know, I've got to heal up, so I've got to go completely raw vegan. Well, what a disaster that was. So I started off obese and ended up completely emaciated. You know, I lost most of the fat, but all the muscle. and my daily juicing of spinach and almonds and God knows what, it landed me with kidney stones. And so there I was, finally woke up to probably where I should be going, and went ketogenic, sort of kind of following the GAPS protocol. Then cold thermogenesis, stuff like that, that burns the fat right off. And I ended up completely emaciated at about 120 pounds at 5'10". And then the kidney stones came, you know, soon after keto, as they often do when the body dumps those oxalates. And that was pretty agony. And anyway, I finally got settled into a keto way of eating, very high meat, few veg here and there. And things started to turn around, and I did loads of other interventions, started to get into Jack Cruse's stuff and learn about all the light and deuterium and all of that kind of thing. And then I wrote a book about 2013 about arthritis, the best thing that ever happened to me, you know, because it took me down so many avenues of emotional healing, everything, sort of healing on all levels. I'm kind of glad I didn't find Carnivore back then, because it made me do all the other stuff too, you know, to heal. And Jack's stuff was so helpful, and Jack ended up doing the foreword to my book, and he's such a character and such a massive brain, isn't he? What a character he is, and what a genius. And then in 2015, 2014 or so, I started to hear these whispers about people dropping all the veg out of the diet. And I thought, yeah, you know, why not? I don't like veg, and I feel better on the days where I don't eat any at all, because I can't be bothered cooking it. So I just dumped it in 2015, and immediately loads of other things felt much better, and body composition changed for the better. And yeah, it was an interesting time. And now, I mean, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? Around 2017, I think, Christmas, a couple of friends asked me to start up a Facebook group, because they'd heard that I just ate meat, and could I help them with it? And so I did, and then it suddenly exploded, and now I think there's about 13,000 on my 100% Carnivore and Beyond group. And it's a funny place, kind of irreverent, and, you know, that awful inappropriate British sense of humor, and we have a lot of fun on there, and deal with all the other stuff too, you know, all the light and deuterium and emotional stuff, and God knows what, you know, all the other ancestral disconnects, really. And then that exploded, and I started to do consults and whatever, and it's great to see that many people healing. I mean, you know, obviously on my YouTube channel, I get a load of threats from vegans and death threats and God knows what, and all that craziness, just like Sean does. And that's okay, because, you know, that when you're getting, I was just talking before when I was on with Sean a minute ago, and it's so funny when you get all that, and yet in your inbox, you're getting these amazing tales of healing, you know, for every one death threat, you're getting all these wonderful tales of healing, and people who fixed this ailment and that ailment that they previously considered was completely incurable. And so, you know, that's where it took me, really. And now I seem to have become known as the sort of English carnivore guy, and it's so weird, you know, it's such a weird sort of forks in the road that life takes, isn't it? But it's so much fun. It's great to be doing it, and to have teamed up with these wonderful partners of mine on what we call the Human Unleashed. And you know, between us, we cover all these areas of stuff, and fantastic healing we see as well among our members on that. And it's just such a rewarding thing to pass on to people, isn't it? I mean, it's fantastic, these stories.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And I was curious to know, like, did you start out just eating meat when you did Carnivore, or did you include eggs, fish, dairy?
Well, you know, I'm a bit of an idiot, and I have no self-control, and I'm an addictive personality, and you know, I'm terrible. I do everything back to front. If somebody comes to me with autoimmunity, I say, listen, go back to fatty beef, salt, water, few organ meats, maybe a bit of fish. Go back to that until the gut's healed, and then reintroduce one thing at a time. Well, did I do that? Did I? Hell, no. What I did is I started off eating everything, anything that came off an animal or anything that was dairy. And even that was a great improvement once I dropped the veg. But when I started to drop the other stuff, particularly pork, chicken, dairy, that kind of thing, dropped all of that, started running on tallow and just ruminant meat and fish, so much better. You know, for somebody with autoimmunity in their past, when you get 95% better from something that's crippling, you believe that you're fixed. But then if you drop those last little irritants out, it's amazing. That last 5% seems like those last, that 95%, because you believed you were well, but then I'd forgotten what actual health was like. And then when that last little bit of the rubbish gets, well, it's not even rubbish, it's great food, isn't it, for most people? But you know, the pork and the chicken can be a little bit inflammatory if your gut's leaky and you're autoimmune. Egg whites, definitely. Egg yolks, possibly. So now, yeah, I can eat that stuff now and again, but I just prefer not to. I've done it for so long that I'm, you know, if I cheat, I prefer it to be with red wine that's kind of a bit more entertaining than you know, a bit of crappy chicken in a restaurant or something. So I'll keep my cheats to that, and that seems to suit me a bit better. But yeah, I pretty much run 99% on ruminant meat now and tallow, the occasional little bit of cheese, the occasional, you know, bacon and some chicken now and again, but very rarely these days. It seems so weird, doesn't it, to start, but your tastes become much simpler, and they sort of you get used to it, and it becomes incredibly satisfying. I think we've just perverted our taste buds to require all these hundreds of different foods, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true. I understand that for sure. So you mentioned that you had oxalates and you had to get rid of those, of course, out of your system, and the kidney stones. Did you have any other symptoms that came up as you were transitioning? I know you've been a carnivore for, was it 5 years now?
I have, yes. And you know, I've had all sorts of little symptoms that have come up. And I've had, you know, they just get less and less. It's like it kind of comes in waves, right? Just little things, little kind of an ache here, a little, but I'm hard pressed to think about them recently. I haven't really had any. Back then, yeah, you know, I'm not sure. It's such a sort of nebulous thing, the oxalate thing, isn't it? Because people sort of put everything down to oxalate. Whatever's the flavor of the month, they have to put it down to that. Whereas before it was, oh, let's put everything down to deuterium, or let's put it, I mean, we're always looking for one thing. We've been so brainwashed by the medical community and their principles that we're always looking for one thing, whereas it never is that. So I can't really say. I mean, the only thing I can definitely say was oxalates. Well, can I? Yes, I probably can. Was the kidney stones, because I don't eat that food anymore and I don't have any more kidney stones. Whereas the doctor told me, if you eat too much meat, you're always going to get kidney stones. So it's funny, isn't it, that I've eaten nothing apart from that for the last 5 years, and I haven't had any kidney stones. But after juicing probably close to a lethal dose of spinach every day, I was landed with a great big one that's stuck in the ureter, and I had to have it lasered out, you know, and broken up. And the pain of that is still haunts me. So yeah, nothing like that. I don't really know. I mean, people have all sorts of things where they say skin issues are down to oxalates. You know, it can come out in many ways, but it's such a young science, isn't it, this oxalate thing? I don't think anybody really understands it, but I think it's a fair bet if kidney stones are made up of oxalates, you know, largely calcium oxalate, that, you know, spinach and almonds and you know, that sort of stuff had a lot to do with it. Oh
yeah. I can relate to that. I used to make green smoothies, green juice, all of that stuff. And you always, but I was taught to rotate my greens. And the reason you rotate them is because if you don't, you'll start feeling sick from all the oxalates.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think foods that you have to necessarily rotate are probably best rotated into the bin.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So did all of your conditions totally improve within your first year or first month, or how did that go for you?
Well, I've had such a long convoluted healing path through keto and whatever. It's difficult to
Mhm.
say,
Right.
but I definitely I didn't have many issues left when I went carnivore. But so I can't say exactly what happened in terms of ailments because I pretty much got rid of them on keto and with all the other stuff, blocking the blue light, getting rid of EMFs, cold thermogenesis, and looking at all my complete lunacies from childhood and unwrapping them with EFT and the tapping and all kinds of things. So I've been on such a huge health journey in the previous years that it wasn't like just going straight carnivore with somebody who's flaring with a big psoriatic arthritis flare or whatever, in which case the improvement can be very dramatic with a few hiccups in the first couple of months, of course, because that healing path is never straight. But for me, I pretty much got rid of them all I can say is, I think I noticed a bigger difference when I dropped dairy, because I thought dairy was fine for me because you get so focused on something like psoriatic arthritis because it's so agonizing that once your joints feel fine, you think, hey, I'm fine, I'm cured.
Mhm.
But I did have not much, but I had a little bit of fat covering up abs, and I had sinus issues. It was in the winter time and sinus issues, and I thought, well, it's just the central heating or whatever. And then I dropped the dairy, even the butter, when my partner had to drop butter going on a PKD diet for Graves' disease. And I said, well, I'll join you. Butter doesn't do me any harm, but I'll join you. We won't buy any butter. And suddenly the fat fell off my stomach, and my sinus issues completely cleared up. And I thought, well, hold on a minute, that was just the butter I was having on my steak. So that was interesting as well. I mean, some people are fine with dairy. I don't think it's an evil. I think it's gorgeous. It's a bit addictive, but it's delicious. Now, if I have it, instead of having butter every day on everything like I used to, I'll just, when I really feel like it, I'll put a great big load of cheese on some burgers and grill it, and then I won't have it again for a couple of weeks or a month. And that seems to be fine. That doesn't cause the issues. Yeah, so definitely, even at a stage where I've written books and consulted with people and everything, I still found benefits in going even more basic.
Wow.
It was
Yeah,
amazing.
that's
Yeah,
amazing, isn't it?
yeah,
So you wrote a book about arthritis. So you had arthritis, is that correct?
yeah, yeah. Psoriatic arthritis, which is basically like rheumatoid, which is the real horrible, painful, inflammatory one. And yeah, I wrote that. It's I hadn't even gone carnivore. I'd love to be able to go back. I think I'll have to do a second edition where I put in a sort of epilogue saying that really, if I'd have known, I'd have gone pure carnivore a lot sooner. But it's not really about carnivore. It's about, there's all kinds of stuff and all the sort of spiritual stuff, and gets into awakenings, and it gets into all kinds of amazing things that happened to me on this journey.
Mhm.
So it's not really down to that. But yeah, there's a lot about diet, and it's all about my struggles with the medical system and trying to unbrainwash myself, and having big rows with rheumatologists. They got so angry with me. There was one who actually foamed at the mouth. He got so angry with me because I wouldn't take methotrexate. And I told him that I very much doubted my condition was a deficiency in methotrexate. And he got so furious. So, it was a funny time. It really was. It was funny writing it because some of that was like horrible memories, but there was some hilarious times. I never quite lose my sense of humor. I think that got me through the painful times.
Yeah. And it's bestseller, right? It's a bestseller
Yeah,
on
no, it
Amazon.
ticks over now. When it first came out for a while, it was a bestseller,
Oh, okay.
but it ticks over now fine. And I sell more of my my FAQ carnivore little ebook now, and my autoimmunity subtraction method course and things like that, and what we do with the Human Unleashed. So I wouldn't say the book keeps me in Ferraris or anything, certainly not.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure it's a good one though.
No, all my Ferraris come from the money that I'm paid by the meat industry to spread my dangerous lies on YouTube, because that's what vegans tell me. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All these millions that I get paid by the
That's right.
millions,
Oh,
whatever that is.
yeah. Oh, okay. I understand. Well, so do you do exercise now quite a bit, or?
No, I'm very lazy. I mean, yes, I do. I sort of do it on a 3-day rotation now. I mean, a couple of years ago, I said, you know what? The problem with a carnivore diet, the main problem is it makes you so lazy because you retain muscle mass, you keep a good body fat level, and you feel great. So the motivation goes down to train. But then I thought, you know what? I'm going to start training, and it's amazing actually. Just from like 2 or 3 minutes a day, I'll just do kind of push-ups and shoulder presses and whatever one day to complete failure and beyond, and just really hammer it. It only takes about 2 minutes, and then back I'll do chins and some kind of rows or something the next day, and then I'll do squats the next day with my cymbal case on my back, or my daughter, or throw a couple of kids on my back or whatever, and do that to failure, and very, very short, and maybe do each one a couple of times a week. It takes me no time at all. I mean, I can throw a steak in a pan and be done training in my living room by the time it's cooked.
Yeah.
And I've put on about 15 pounds of muscle in about a year doing that. And that's at 58 years old. And it blows me away, really, what you can do with this. So yeah, it's the diet for lazy trainers, definitely.
Yeah, it's amazing because, well, I'm up in years myself, and I started putting on muscle and I wasn't working out at all. So, except for walking. I'm a walker. I walk, but
Well,
I wasn't lifting weights or anything. And it was like my muscles are getting bigger in my arms and stuff. So
I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
it is. It is. Well, thank you so much, Phil, for sharing your story. Would you want to tell everyone how they can connect with you?
Yes, sure. Well, I have a YouTube channel that's just Phil Escott, and there's lots of stuff on there. There's loads of videos on there and interviews and whatever. And I have a website, Pure Activity, P-U-R-E activity, one word, .net, where you can find my autoimmunity course and FAQ ebook and whatever. And the thing that I'm really the most proud of at the moment that I'm doing is before I go into that, there's also my 100% Carnivore and Beyond Facebook group, which is fun. We have a lot of fun on there. And what I really love doing at the moment, I'm putting most of my effort into, is my partnership with Dr. Jeremy Ayres and Graham Norbury and Ben Hunt, and in The Human Unleashed. And if you go to thehumanunleashed.com, we have 30 days free there. You can check out. We got about 90 hours of our wafflings on video there, but we have a great camaraderie. We have a lot of fun, and we're such good friends. I always say that I thought when I put together my dream band, it would be in music, but actually this is it, and it's wonderful to be part of this, and we learn so much from each other, and we have a real laugh. And we've also got a load of chats that are free up there as well on this whole COVID situation. We've gone very deep into that, and not just the health side of things, but absolutely everything. It's fascinating to really ask questions about what's going on, because a lot of it doesn't add up. But yeah, so that's really thehumanunleashed, one word.com. That's where I put most of my efforts into these days.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So do you do much drumming still, or?
Oh yeah. I'm 58 and I'm playing rings around younger people, and they're all gagging for a pizza after a gig, and I could do it all again. The energy is just so constant, and so it just never dips, and you don't need a carb input in between sets or whatever. And that is fantastic. I'm loving it. So I'm playing quite well. Obviously, I'm not playing gigs now because they've shut down all the venues, but I was, and hopefully I will again if they lift this madness. And yeah, it's great. Several bands and having a load of fun.
That sounds awesome. Well, thank you so much again for coming to the show and for sharing your story. I know it'll help a lot of people.
You're so welcome. It was lovely to chat. Thank you so much for asking me.
Lovely to meet you.
You too.
Okay, we'll see you around.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.